Hey everyone, how's everybody doing? Hope you're doing well. Um, I think I've talked briefly on this in regards to I'm tired of people commenting in the comments about how bad California is. I'm tired. I'm tired of people saying that we voted these people in, and you know, really, that's what you guys think, that we voted these people in? No. People need to understand California is more red than it is blue. The problem that we have with the state is it's a very corrupt state, and it's run by a bunch of corrupt people that are being paid to ruin California. And this is my opinion, and this is my opinion only, but it's the truth. I've lived in California for over 37 years, and I see what's going on. People don't realize Pete Wilson was a Republican. Arnold Schwarzenegger was a moderate Republican, but he was still a Republican. And it's just interesting how everybody says, you voted him in, you voted him in. No, we didn't. It's called fraud. It's called illegals. I don't have a problem if you want to come to this country, but you need to come to this country like about 4 or 5 of my friends did. They came here and they got their citizenship, plain and simple. It may have taken some of them longer than others, but they got their citizenship. And that's all that matters. And I can guarantee you they're quite upset with the fact that these people can walk in here and get free health care, get a free phone, get a free hotel room. And it's all being paid by our government. But yet, anybody else that needs help, that are citizens, and this is what I've said all along. I've said this for a long time. Being a law-abiding citizen is just in control. When these people can come in and do crimes and just get a slap on the hand, yet if you're a citizen, you're going to get the book thrown at you. And things are changing in California, and I'm seeing things change, and it's for the better. People are standing up and finally saying, we are the people. And after the last election in November, it's very clear when 10 counties turned red. And that's the whole reason why our wonderful, stupid-ass governor, and he's dumber than a box of rocks, just like Karen Bass is dumber than a box of rocks. And a lot of the people they're dumber than a box of rocks. They're playing dumb, but they're truly dumb. They're very dense, and that's why they're in this role. If we had a smart person or a level-headed, logical, with common sense, California would be thriving. But they used C-19 just to ruin this state, and they continue to try to go down that road and push things and push they're not going to win. I mean, Gavin has a podcast now, and his podcast is horribly ratings. He doesn't have any ratings. He is done. His political career is done, and he knows it. That's why he's trying to push this bill through to try to get illegals still get paid, their fees, paid to vote, because he doesn't have the votes. And, the fact of the matter is it's going to be interesting next year. It's going to be real interesting, the midterms and what happens with the midterms. But I think a lot of people have woken up, and that's why I never said I was going to move out of California for political reasons. The only way I'd move out of California is if, I don't know why. I don't even know if I would have an excuse to move out of California. There's no reason for me to. There's no reason, and I'm not going to. I love California. People can sit there. I just take back by the person, hey, sorry, my dogs are playing. I just go about that woman that lived around Nashville all of her life, was born and raised, moved to Orange County, Granted, it's Orange County. And I follow her on Instagram, and I watch her, and she's just like, why does California get such a bad rap? I don't get it. She goes, we're paying $200 more for our apartment than what the apartment we paid for in Nashville. And a lot of people are moving to Nashville and Tennessee. And I went to Tennessee, and I didn't like it. The people were unfriendly. It seems like there's a lot of dysfunctional people that move there because they're moving there because of political reasons. They're moving there because, I had some ex-friends that moved there, and they're not any happier living there than they were in California. They're just not happy people. And it's just funny how, and I couldn't say bad things about Tennessee, but I ran into a lady at one of the liquor stores that we were perusing when I was there. And she sat there and told me, she says, I have family live in California. And she says, the only thing you've got us beat by is housing and gas prices. She goes, I've lived in Tennessee all my life. I have family that have lived in California all their life. And she said, that's the only difference. She goes, it would be worth it for me if I could live in California for the weather. And I said, yeah. I said, but a lot of people are moving because of political reasons. She goes, yeah. And she goes, they don't realize when they move to Tennessee, it's not going to be any better here because she said, Tennessee's got a lot of weird people. And I thought that was very interesting. Everywhere has a lot of weird people. But the simple fact of the matter is I'm tired of people saying, oh, don't come in California us. No, it's just amazing what Texas says, and all the problems that Texas had. Texas had all those problems before a lot of people moved to California, because you got a lot of people that moved to Colorado. And notice Colorado's always been a blue state. And this is what I make this. A lot of people from Texas moved to Colorado. And all of a sudden, Colorado's always been kind of a liberal state anyway. Same with Montana. And everybody thinks that Montana is such a red state. It's got a lot of liberals that live there. And that's what's really funny about that. So, like I said, people stop talking smack about California. It's really not that bad. I'm just tired of people that have to have excuses to move. It's one thing if you're moving out of the state for a job, for a better job, and you can afford a bigger house for your family. That's great. But don't, half the people that I know that have left California, they moved because of political reasons, because they just couldn't stand the political. And if you're going to let politics affect you that much, then you probably should look into your health and yourself for that. Because yes, it does bother me. Sorry, I've got dogs playing, and of course this is Coda. It's enough. It's just funny how I know certain people are not. I have one client that moved. They lived here in South Orange County by me. And he had a good handyman business, and she was working for a company, and she was able to transfer. And they're going to get out of here because they just can't afford it. Mind you, their house that they bought just down the street they had a good mortgage on it with a good rate and everything else, and they sold it for a lot of money and moved to Texas, and he thought he was going to start his handyman business and everything else, and they've been there 3 years, and they want to come back to California. But the problem is they can't, because they can't afford it. They can't afford it now because, buying the home if they want to buy. Why are you guys playing when I'm trying to do video? Why? Anyway, I digress on my dogs, but this is what I have to deal with. And you know how German Shepherds play. They play really rough and loud. They're very boisterous. But anyway, they can't move back. They can't move back and they're really sad because his handyman business didn't take off like he thought it was going to do in Texas. And she hates the people that she works with. You know, she transferred out with a company out there, and they've had some issues with their kids and everything else. And it's like, yeah, you had everything going. Not that they didn't have problems here, but people think that they're going to better their lives by moving. And it's great if it does, but just don't move out of paradise. You're living in paradise. You know, they're complaining about the heat. They're complaining about the weather. They're complaining about how bad the traffic is. And I'm just like, but California was bad. And like I said, if it improves your life, go for it. If you want to experience somewhere else, great. But don't move because of what you see on the news. You know, and I saw a YouTube video about a real estate agent that's in Austin, and he's doing videos now where he's a real estate agent. He's lived in Austin for a very long time, and he says, I'm dealing with people that moved to Austin from California, and they want to move back now. And he said, I think more people are realizing that Texas is not the best alternative, especially when you lived in California with the climate. Climate's much different. That's the biggest complaint. And property taxes are super high. Super high. I have another client that moved there, and he moved there way before the boom of people moving there. I think 15 years ago he moved there. And that's what he complains about. He said, my property taxes were $3,000 a year. And he said, now they're $15,000 a year, and they keep going up. He said, I got a house for a good price and it's almost paid off. But he said, I'm going to have the property tax bill. So, like I said, stop. We don't vote these people in. They're automatically put in and they cheat. We know they cheat. And they're doing a very good job of trying to keep the illegals here. And I just hope that a lot of them get deported before. And like I said, I don't have a problem but come to our country. You know, you can't get away with any of this stuff if you go to other countries. You're actually put in prison, a lot of the countries, if you go there illegally without the proper channels that you go through. And I know that because I've had several friends, you know, that have had trouble just getting into the country with a passport, visiting. So anyway, I digress on that. And like I said, I just wanted to come out and do this video because I just think people need to shut up with the comments. If you don't live in California, you don't see what's going on in California. The news is exaggerating a lot of the stuff. I am not saying that our government is not destroying California, because it is, but California is a beautiful state. There's lots of places to visit. There's lots of things to do, and that's why I'm not leaving. You know, I can be in the mountains in an hour and a half. I can be at the ocean in 5 minutes, or I can be the desert in 2 hours. And that's the benefit of living in Southern California. There's lots to do if you want to get out there and do it. So anyway, hope you guys have a good rest of the weekend. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.